when you choose to play Doomsday, you're choosing to take a deck that maybe is good against a lot of other stuff, but is going to be a dog against the top decks in the meta. If you can dodge that, which seems unlikely, you might do okay. You can try to hedge to bring that up, and that is these tempo versions that we're seeing with Kaido and Barrowglyph in the sideboard, but then that makes you weaker against all the other stuff. A top-level New York City player once told me that he needed me to stay on Doomsday because his view of how tournaments shook out was that in the early rounds, his 50-50 Delver deck was going to lose to hard-fought matches to things like lands. He needed me in the early rounds to put all them out so that at the end of the tournament, he could face me and take his good matchup after I had weeded out all of the nonsense.
Hello and welcome to Eternal Doodles. I'm Phil Bleckman, your host as always, and with me as always, my new co-host and Eternal Weekend North America top 8 competitor, going to crush it in Eternal Weekend, Luca. It's Eric Rutkowski. Tall Eric, welcome to the show.
Hi, Phil. Thanks for having me.
Wow. Thanks for coming on. So today, everyone, we're going to do what everybody's been wanting, which is to hear all about how you have updated Doomsday post-Entomb-ban because you were the one pilot at North America that took, would you call it Entomb-day? Is that what the...
I think that is what has been adopted by most people in the community, although in my records, I always call it Reanimator because it's Reanimator first. Maybe it doesn't have the same ring, but...
Entomb-day does roll smooth, and it tells you what it is. Reanimator is, it's like, you know, as somebody who's played many... Have you ever cast Seize the Day?
No, I don't know what that does.
Do you know what that card does?
No, please tell me.
No, here's the thing. I don't know what it means either, but players can get confused, you know? So let's just dive in on where your head is at post Entomb-ban and how that is reconfiguring what I imagine for sure what your main board looks like, but are you still doing... Actually, I'm not even going to presume. Let me know. Where's your head at on it?
All right. So, you know, I have played a lot of Turbo Doomsday. At times, I have gone into these other tempo spaces, which was actually the first time I played Doomsday at Game Storia, was tempo with actual Delver of Secrets in it, of all things. There's some obvious synergies with Murktide that have always sort of been abused. And then in the Frog and Tamiyo era, so Eternal Weekend last year, I was going back and forth between Turbo with Vexing Bauble and Tempo with Frog and Tamiyo, both of which are cards that obviously work really well. Just the plans kind of fade into each other really well. Obviously, we no longer have Frog, and the most recent tempo versions, I would say the strongest one was that version of Entomb-day that I played at Eternal Weekend, which I think is kind of doing that sort of thing. It's playing slightly tempo-ish and just switching the plans. Obviously, you're not as all in on Turbo because you're not playing Personal Tutor in the sideboard of that deck. So, bringing us to what versions exist now. There are still tempo versions, then there are still Turbo versions. The biggest problem with Turbo, I think, is that it has to play Personal Tutor. And it feels so bad to cast that card in any kind of fair blue stuff. You know, if you're casting it against Maverick because you're running into the one Maverick player that's still left out there, sure, it helps you win a lot faster. Even then, they have tools, you know, they see it coming and play their Disruptor Flute, or they keep their Endurance in hand, or whatever it is. They all have tools now. And so in a lot of cases, I think Personal Tutor has just become Tamiyo, because if you're going to spend one blue on something, that's way better than Personal Tutor. Each one gets you a threat. It's just that Tamiyo is proactive.
Just for all of the players that are in the same headspace as me that are ignorant and don't know much, with Personal Tutor being bad, is the part that is the more challenging part about that card because it goes down the card, or because it shows them the information?
I think that it goes down the card. I mean, like, Doomsday, the game plan is clear the second they figure it out, but the tools that they use against it don't change. I mean, what else are they going to counter if not the Doomsday? They're not spending forces on your Dark Rituals. Usually, I mean, obviously that's all contextual, but like the deck is just cantrips and the protection and the Doomsday package. Your whole deal is resolving Doomsday. And if the deck doesn't, it loses. I do think, and just to expand, as we were talking about like what versions are available, I would like to focus on Turbo tonight, because I think the tempo versions are just a lot worse right now. People have been having success with like Bowmasters and maybe sprinkling some other creatures in the main deck. But like none of them are the power level of Frog, and you're just a crappy Dimir tempo deck in that case. I firmly believe that.
Finding the right high-end cards for legacy, vintage, pre-modern, or old-school Magic can be challenging. That's where friends 3-for-1 trading come in.
3-for-1 Trading is one of Europe's top Magic the Gathering retailers with an incredible selection of premium singles, sealed product, and even full sets, all available with free, fast, and secure worldwide shipping.
They add fresh inventory every Wednesday with weekly deals and discounts. So whether you're hunting for that elusive piece of power, a legacy staple, or something spicy for your collection, they've got you covered.
First high-end orders over $500 or €500, use the code EDFREE to get free worldwide shipping.
Check them out now at the number 3, the number 4, the number 1.gg/ED. That link takes you right to the shop and helps support the channel.
Huge thanks to 3-for-1 Trading for supporting the legacy community. Now back to the show.
Does the turbo version also, like at baseline, include Tamiyo?
Well, that would be the decision that you make. I think you can play Turbo with either Tamiyo or Personal Tutor. Both of them are 1 mana blue things that expand your threat base from just the 4 Doomsdays. Because in my career, I can't tell you how many games I've lost over just not finding Doomsday. Like, have it completely wrapped up where everything else, I just can't find Doomsday. And casting Personal Tutor makes sure that you always find Doomsday, but it goes down a card. It feels bad if you keep like 4 with Personal Tutor and Dark Ritual and some lands, whereas if you kept that same 4 with Tamiyo, you can make a game out of it. I just don't think you can casting Personal Tutor.
Yeah, and there's never been a version of Turbo that doesn't include Force Days, right? Like,
yeah,
the question of that means that like there's never been like pulling from like the Storm technology of doing like ritual spells, disruption, and then empty my hand for Infernal Tutor to cast the Doomsday that way, right? Like that's never been a thing, because like going into Doomsday, passing the turn is too much if you're empty-handed.
Yeah, there are maybe more exotic versions, like
exotic version is a good way to put it. Yeah.
The week after Eternal Weekend, I wanted to play with my foil tendrils just once, so I played Doomsday with Bolas's Citadel and like a Storm thing in the main deck. I don't think they're very good. They're out there. You could combine them with other forms of protection. Like you could play green for Veil of Summer. You could play white for Teferi. And those things pop up. And some of the pilots that are really good, like Mike Reed and Max Carini, like they seem to win with almost any version. But I suspect, and maybe they want to write in and tell me that I'm wrong, they're still just casting Doomsday and winning. And like when I've played tempo versions of it, or I've played these other types, you still just got to cast Doomsday. And maybe if the meta shakes out properly, you know, Veil of Summer is a little better if you're going to face a bunch of blue-black. Maybe your tempo versions with Barrowgoyf in the main buy you a little bit of time against blue-red. But in the end, if you're not resolving Doomsday, if you're not finding it and casting it, these decks don't do anything as good as other decks that are trying to control it or play powerful proactive spells if you're not playing Doomsday. You're just playing worse versions.
In that case, do you think that the splashing of a third color is mostly a trap? Do you think that blue and black just provides all of the things that you actually need to be like the efficient Doomsday deck that can win an event?
Probably in this meta, I think that's true.
Yeah. Do you think that the post-board pivots now, because I've seen a couple of different things post-Entomb-ban where I've seen people essentially like do sort of like what you were doing, where you started as Reanimator and then moved into Doomsday if you felt like it. I've seen players start as Doomsday and then like move into what is Dimir tempo because they're balancing the Barrowgoyfs and Tamiyos somewhere within the main and board, but then they move into things like Kaito and stuff and just really pivot hard off of the combo and just be like, we're going to play all the best cards. Where's your head at on that? Do you think that those are good plans, or do you think that's just the flavor of the week?
I think those are also traps. Now, I realize this is kind of a hot take. Again, the players that I mentioned can do that and do well. The problem is just that when you make those pivots, your main deck, you don't have enough slots to transform into a reasonable tempo deck. So sure, your sideboard has Kaito, Bowmasters, Barrowgoyf. Like 4 Barrowgoyfs are almost de rigueur against playing, if you think you're going to play against a lot of Izzet. I hate having those, but they're kind of required the way Shieldred used to be. So those things aside, what else are you filling that sideboard with? They play a couple of Fatal Push, right? There's still rarely any Wastelands in the 75, so you're not doing any better against Blue Post or Forge or any of those things that are out there. That sideboard transformation, to me, is only good against the tempo decks. And if you could guarantee that you were just going to queue into Is It Delver a bunch of times, then fine. Like that's a good plan. The problem is that the meta is just not made up quite that way. The matchup against Is It Delver or Cutter Stuff is bad enough that that's why you kind of are priced into putting Barrel Glyphs in the sideboard at least. But the rest of the cards, they're taking a matchup that's bad and maybe making it middling, and then they don't give you any tools against all the other decks which are trying to do stuff against you too. You just can't say, I mentioned these things that the tools that green decks have before. You just can't say that Doomsday is like a 90% matchup against things like Green-White Depths or lands or Cradle Control, because they're playing Thoughtseize, they're playing Bowmasters, they're playing For Endurance. Like you need other stuff coming out of your sideboard to kind of deal with that. So I think that those tempo versions are hedging in a way that maybe doesn't make a lot of sense for bigger tournaments.
So going into something like Eternal Weekend, Luca, it seems as though the results of the previous, what I've been seeing from challenges is people trying to figure out, okay, what does the world look like without Nadu? What does it look like without Entomb? I've been seeing, Reanimator decks sort of move like towards Careful Study, a couple more of the monsters, but they're still otherwise playing the game plan to put Atraxa or Archon into play as fast as possible. I've seen Breakfast still showing up with a couple of different versions, whether it's Voice of Victory or the Stoneforge Mystic package with different pivots. But for the most part, outside of that, it seems like the metagame has stayed mostly intact. You're sort of coming out of Eternal Weekend North America, you're in like the most unique spot in that like your deck got hit, but like, did it?
Half of it got hit.
Half of it got hit. And so I'm curious to know like, with where the meta is now, do you think, well, two things. What are you thinking about Doomsday going into Europe or going into Luca? And how do you think that it is positioned? Like, how confident are you feeling about Doomsday going into Europe as you were going into North America?
Well, there's a little bit of trick there. I never feel confident about the deck choice. I was saying Friday night at Eternal Weekend North America that I was too big of a coward to play in Doomsday at the main event, but then it was the only deck that I had loaded in Moxfield, and I didn't feel like typing something else into on my phone into Melee, so I just rolled with it.
Shout out to Moxfield for credit to Moxfield for your top 8.
Yeah, no, they deserve all the credit. I'm happy to help you with your sponsors here.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you to our sponsor Moxfield for also not only helping the show become the tier 1 of the content game, but also getting Eric into top 8 of North America and EW. In times of financial uncertainty, how can you stay on track? Call someone who's invested in your success. Nick Ropp, your Edward Jones financial advisor and certified financial planner, is here to help you. He will work to build a complete picture of your financial life, including your unique goals and passions, so he can help you achieve what's most important to you. Call Nick Ropp at 314-377-9524 or email nicholas.ropp@edwardjones.com to schedule an appointment today. That's 314-377-9524 or email nicholas.roupp@edwardjones.com. Edward Jones member, SIPC.
I mean, I think I had very little to do it. It was Matt Ivins loaning me cards and Moxfield helping me out with the list. That's it. They take probably the vast majority of the credit.
So do you think it's more important to have powerful sponsors and friends with the cards that you need in the correct aesthetics, more so than practice or testing or wit, skill?
There's important percentages to talk about here, but I think those things that you're talking about are high level. They're majority percentages.
So you're saying people probably don't aggregate enough time to them in their testing?
Definitely not.
Okay, so
I've never experienced that.
So that's it. So like the biggest takeaway. Okay, so that's great. That's our hot clip for this episode. Everybody who's listening, your aesthetics matter the most for your card choices, and you have to have friends, humble brag, and great sponsors. For going into Luca is there any major changes? Like, okay, so let's say you have the Entomb-ban, you have Doomsday. You're thinking your Doomsday is just going to go back into being just a straight combo deck, and then the board is going to be supplementing that compared to what you think people are going to be playing against. So you're off of the pivots. You don't believe in them at the moment.
I'll always believe in them. I can never step away from that. But I don't think it's very practical. And I'm not going to be playing that kind of thing. I'm not trying to game anyone out there who might see this and then play me. There's nothing to do really. I did play a league with an absolutely insane brew that had Unmarked Grave and World Gorger Dragon combo in the main, because that wins with Thassa's Oracle, and then you sideboard out into a Doomsday thing. I don't think it's particularly good. Unmarked Grave is just terrible. So let's set that aside. So in the macro sense, Doomsday, as long as I've been playing it, which was post Underworld Breach, so I don't think quite at the height of its power. I feel like I missed by maybe half a year when Doomsday was really truly like the best thing that you could be doing. The matchup spread has stayed roughly even. At the top of the legacy metagame, there has always been a tempo deck, and the tempo decks have always been difficult for Doomsday, whether it's blue-red with its clock and its pyroblasts and its standard disruption plus lightning bolt. That's always been difficult. I balk really hard at Doomsday people who say that matchup can ever be made even. If you think about these matchups in terms of like hand quality versus what you keep and how they match up, is it Delver has just always had so many weapons in terms of their regular disruption suite and the ability to just kill you with lightning bolt that it's always been difficult, and you have to hedge quite a bit. Blue-black brings something different to the table. They have Thoughtseize instead, and the Reanimator deck had a really fast clock. Like, they put Archon into play, and suddenly all your street rates are off, and you can't let them get another turn. Plus, they're sometimes playing Bowmasters. All that stuff is around. Doomsday has never had a good matchup against those. It maybe gets closer to even, but it has never been good. So when you choose to play Doomsday, you're choosing to take a deck that maybe is good against a lot of other stuff, but is going to be a dog against the top decks in the meta. If you can dodge that, which seems unlikely if it's the most commonly played deck, you might do okay. You can try to hedge to bring that up, and that is these tempo versions that we're seeing with Kaido and Barrowglyph in the sideboard, but then that makes you weaker against all the other stuff. A top-level New York City player once told me that he needed me to stay on Doomsday because his view of how tournaments shook out was that in the early rounds, his 50-50 Delver deck was going to lose to like hard-fought matches to things like lands. He needed me in the early rounds to put all them out so that at the end of the tournament, he could face me and take his good matchup after I had weeded out all of the nonsense.
Well, I can understand from the one thing that I've learned about whoever this top New York player is, beyond the fact that they're playing tempo to some capacity, is that they also agree that splitting is quitting. And I think that's something we can all get behind.
Are you going to split the top 8 of Luca when you get there?
No. Splitting is quitting. There's no way. Like, also, like, I don't know how you feel as somebody who, routinely top 8s these major events now. As somebody who has never top 8'd one of these major events, if I get there, I'm like, nah, I want to be here as long as I can. I don't know when this is going to happen again. Like, I'm not trying to arbitrarily cut this short.
I will say 2 things. Number one, they may split for you. I've heard that Four Seasons and the Italian tournaments, they don't play it out. Maybe this is different because it's an official Wizards of the Coast event, like it's sanctioned. But I believe that Four Seasons is auto split. I think that's just.
So it's good that if, let's say in the hypothetical timeline that we're in, I somehow do top 8 playing, the absolute trash that I'm going to bring to Italy. What'll be great about that, if they demand or don't allow anything other than a split, I can maintain my reputation as somebody who will never split while still getting the benefit of then getting to go and spend more time in Italy rather than at the convention hall.
Fair enough.
Which is valuable, right? We all have to balance that out. That is something you have to think about. How do you
Absolutely.
sideboard for your matchups, and then also sideboard for how much time you're spending at the convention hall versus being in Italy?
Now, of course, you have a much longer trip, so you're going to get a lot of Italy equity.
Yeah. I'm trying to maximize where I know I can play around. I'll punt a ton, but I know that maximizing my Italy equity is I'm not trying to just walk into that rake.
I always think that your decks can take it down.
Yeah, sometimes it just depends on if your counterbalances are running hot, like, and that it's similar to like where you're like, you're always going to be a dog in those matchups. It's like, if I ever run into anything Ancient Tomb or where they're skipping the 1 and 2s on the curve, If you're playing anything bigger than 1s and 2s, I'm playing Counterbalance Prismatic Ending. I'm never touching your 4-drops. So like, we're never going to interact on that scale. Like that's going to be a quick 1-2 out.
So you're saying you don't want to see Blue Post and you don't want to see Mystic Forge.
Yeah, I don't want to see anything Ancient Tomb that's like, if you're skipping 1s and 2s on the curve, I'm not interested in playing against you. I only want to play against things that are 1s and 2s because when you go into an event with Counterbalance, I know this is what everybody wants to hear, right? Everybody was like, oh yeah, the Doomsday episode. Well, we're talking about Counterbalance. You need some amount of blind flip equity in the same way that, you need equity against anything else, like in your matchups. Like you're the same way that like if you bring Doomsday, you're like, well, I hope I dodge the tempo matchups more than anything else. I'm in the same space. I'm like, well, I hope I dodge the Ancient Tomb matchups more than anything else. Like, and I think that's the same for any of the top decks, unless, I mean, is there any deck that, there's no deck that's great across the entire field, right? Everything's a dog to something.
Yeah, I often say this about Legacy. The cards are all mega powerful. Like, someone would have to really not know what they were walking into, like, at all to truly not be able to win a single game of Legacy. Like, you think about even tier 2 decks, or I don't, the tier system is nonsense, but like, I lost a game to Nick Fit, a person that was playing their second ever match of Legacy. This person played Bowmaster after Bowmaster and had Endurance and had Thoughtseize. Like, those are all Legacy level cards. That deck might not get much respect, but if you stumble in Legacy, you're going to lose. I'm really sorry. I'm getting a Discord call from Mike Reed.
Yeah, you got to take it. Actually, can you put it on speaker? Let's get him on the episode.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know how to do that.
I don't know how. Let's see. Actually, send him the link. Get him in here. We're on the fly. I'll send him the link.
He wants me to get on his podcast right now. I guess we're recording right now.
Yeah, we're joining up. All right, tell him 10 more minutes, and then I'll let you be the star that you are.
He didn't let me know.
Wait, he's doing it impulsively?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Eternal Dirtles is proud to be sponsored by Moxfield. Moxfield is the best Magic the Gathering deck building website on the internet. You can create, share, and find decks from Commander to Legacy, and even fan-supported formats like Pre-Modern and Old School. You can see all of our decks on our Moxfield. Follow the links below to stay tuned.
Yo, how about this? Yo, tell him after we wrap up if he wants us both on the call. I won't derail anything, I promise.
Yes, actual 10 minutes, right? We've done
actual
like
10 minutes. Yeah, you're going to run us down. I'm curious to know. I've seen a couple of different things that for Doomsday, like seeing all of the different pivot plans, I've been noticing very critical things that really matter to me when I'm looking at how do I combat Doomsday. I think everybody knows like how Doomsday has been operating because it's been one of the best decks, I think, for several years at this point. Ever since Thassa's Oracle came in, I feel like it's been one of the top Thassa's Oracle decks. But there are critical pressure points that I've been seeing a lot of these pivots post-ban and one of the most critical is how many Thassa's Oracle do we play now?
Almost universally 2.
Okay, because I've seen some lists where they have the pivot plan, and so they're hedging, and so they only play 1. And I go, that's a whole different ballgame of the cards that become viable options against the deck if you're only playing 1 versus 2.
If a deck is playing only 1 in the main, you have to have something else. Usually that's Jace. If Jace is either in the main or the sideboard, I think, and I could be wrong. I reject the idea that I'm some sort of expert. I don't think anyone can be an expert on Doomsday. But I prefer Laboratory Maniac in the sideboard. Jace costing what it does, costing 4, is really difficult. I don't know how people are winning with that at the rate that they are. If you're trying to beat Consign to Memory and Disruptor Flute and Kozilek's Command, for that matter, the card that you actually want, I think, is Laboratory Maniac. And I might be going against a lot of conventional wisdom here, but that's what I play in my sideboard to beat Consign to Memory. That's the card you really need to beat.
Is the difference really just the difference from 3 to 4 mana? Is that like the actual main thing, or is it because people are boarding out removal and it's a creature and that's just like not a downside anymore? Is it the triple blue cost, or is it actually just straight up 3 versus 4?
It is being able to play it uncounterably off of Cavern of Souls.
Cavern of Souls, yeah.
That's way more important. Like, if I expend all my resources to resolve a Doomsday, and then they're drawing a couple of turns, how am I not going to get wasted out of that? How are they not going to draw their 7th Force of Negation to kill my Jace? And if I'm not casting Jace, if I'm not casting it immediately with discard backup, how am I ever going to resolve that? And that just takes more time. That's actually a 5 mana play. I would argue that Laboratory Maniac, or even Laboratory Maniac, is essentially a 4 mana play because you need an extra card. to win with it immediately. Like you need a counterable cycler ready to go. Oracle, if you're going to beat Consign with an Oracle, it's a 3 mana play because you have to have Duress or Thoughtseize. And all of those things can get countered. Cavern of Souls is the easiest way to play something uncounterable against people that I think might have removal. And this is a big problem against Pyroblast decks. Again, this is it Delver rearing its ugly head as a bad matchup. But like, so they have Consign and they have Pyroblast. Like, you can't beat all that stuff. Like, Pyroblast doesn't do anything against Cavern of Souls, and then you just wait and put them under pressure to fire off their thing. You're probably under the gun anyway. If you're waiting on their Pyroblast, like, yeah, I don't know. You're in a bad situation against that deck no matter what.
Is there, can you, just for the people who are going, but why do you even need the second Thassa's Oracle to begin with? Can you explain why you're playing the second copy? Is it just like to hedge against, like, if something were to happen to your first copy and so you want to play it safe? What's the actual explanation?
Yeah, there's a few different reasons. Number one, second Oracle is how you beat main deck endurance, or like if you don't have the life to go low, but they might be able to hold up swords to plowshares. You know, you're playing some number of cyclers, often 2 edge and 2 street wraith, or some people are playing more street wraiths up to 4, like the vintage version right now. Those make your life total low really fast. And if you just need to get done, you can often put 2 oracles in the pile, just give you some redundancy against Brazen Borrower or whatever.
So there are actual strategic applications to the second Oracle being in the list.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think you can't always empty the pile. And it's more likely that people will be able to interact with your first Oracle, but then it takes enough resources out of them. Like, that's another way to beat Consign, right? Like, if you both go to low resources, Doomsday gets resolved, they have like a small clock or not much of a clock. Sometimes you just let them Consign the first one and then cross your fingers that they're not going to find another Consign the second time.
Yeah, and Cavern of Souls doing work there to make sure that, like, it's narrowing the options that are even available to them to begin with.
Yeah, there's like series of cards that can beat you, but they need to have it all. Like, a strength of Doomsday has always been that it puts your opponent under the pressure to make the exact right decisions and draw in the exact way. At its best, that's what it's doing. And like, yeah, they could waste your Cavern of Souls and draw another Force of Will or another Daze or whatever, all on low resources, and then you lose. But that's kind of always going to be the consequence. If they have 3 Wastelands against you, you're probably going to lose anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that's evergreen statement against any deck. This is going to be the first event, or first major event that I'm aware of that Avatar and all of the supplements that come with it are going to be like available to play with. Is there anything that you've seen in the new set that you think is A, going to make a difference for the meta at large that you care about? And B, is there anything that Doomsday has been looking at from the new set?
Well, you're asking that question about Avatar, but really there have been a couple of sets. There's the Spider-Man stuff. So Spider-Punk trapped in the ceiling, and then the owl in new Avatar set.
Tongue?
Yeah. All of those have seen people kind of mess around with, but I believe, and I've said this before on Eternal Turtles, I believe that the bar for quality to get into contemporary Doomsday is so high that it's extremely difficult for them to print a card that doesn't get banned because of what it does to Doomsday, but also is good enough to make it in there and not immediately break every other Tempo version. Because Doomsday is right on the edge of the Tempo spectrum. It's combo control, it's playing Force and Daze, no Wastelands, but it's really not that different from a Dimir Tempo. Other than the Wastelands, it's playing Threats and Disruption. I mean, maybe that's every deck in Legacy. Maybe that's every Magic deck. I don't know. We're getting really deep into some theory here, but minus the Wasteland Disruption, the Disruption in Doomsday is almost the same.
Yeah, there's always, we've never actually like delved into it, but like how close Dark Ritual and Wasteland are in terms of like what they are actually trying to operate for a game is like, one is denying a resource, one is just speeding it up so that you never actually get to develop those resources in the first place. So like in, you know, on the opposite ends of the spectrum, they are accomplishing the same thing, which is to keep you from being able to develop. And so it's like, it's close in that regard. It's just on that side of the spectrum. It's on the Dark Ritual side. So you don't think that there's anything from the new set that also that you care about as Doomsday, not just playing with it, but there's nothing that you're like, I need to be conscious of this card going into Luca and I have to like think about whether or not I'm boarding properly for it.
I haven't seen anything yet, but I am admittedly really bad at looking at spoilers and evaluating cards until other people, the whole internet hive mind, does it for me. And I've played a reasonable number of leagues over the last couple weeks, and I just haven't seen anything that's moving the bar.
Cool. Well, thank you for coming on to the show. I know you are busy. I appreciate you penciling us in because you got another podcast to do right now over on the Small Talk podcast. Eric, thank you so much. I wish you the best, and I'll see you over in Italy because we're gonna be we're you know, they say if you want to top it, you got to hang out with the people who top it. So that's what we're gonna do.
Thanks for having me, Phil. I look forward to travel. Good luck on your travel, and I will see you in Italy.
Sounds good, brother. Later on.
Have a good one.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching. And if you have a moment, please subscribe to the show and like the video. That goes a long way to helping support the pre-modern and legacy content ecosystem that we've created here.
Also, do us a favor and join us at patreon.com/eternaldurdles. We've separated the tiers, so if you join the Durdle Maniacs tier, you'll get only Magic content, the same great content that you've always enjoyed.
And if you'd like both our Magic content and our sorcery content, you can join us at the Magicians tier and get both. Thanks so much for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.